we are going to talk about how to avoid becoming a medical statistic and cover prevention of chronic illness.
When we had discussed, doing the show, and we talked about the idea of chronic illness and becoming a medical statistic, thinking about how do we even start this conversation? It's such an enormous thing, It seems like as you hit your 40s, I guess, everybody either has something going on physically or has a family member or knows somebody who has some kind of chronic illness. And it seems like it's everywhere, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
It's frightening to know how much we actually are affected by this.
Well, and I'd like to say just first, let's start off with a definition of exactly what is chronic illness.
Let me just start out by saying that if you were to have a heart attack or a stroke, there's nowhere on the planet that you would rather be, because we have an amazing medical infrastructure. But our medical system has been set up for the treatment of acute problems. When you get sick, you go to the doctor. The doctor is there to help to relieve whatever the crisis happens to be. And then instead of them saying, well, let me teach you how to stay well, they say, when you get sick, again, come on back. So right. It's this idea of being able to handle an acute care situation, that's amazing here. But right now, if you look at diabetes or, heart disease, and those are the kinds of chronic illnesses we're talking about, arthritis, immune disorders, autoimmune illnesses, and so on. There's no immediate one-shot solution for, and yet we're still stuck in the same medical paradigm that our doctors and our medical system is set up to treat acute illnesses, but they're really ill-prepared to handle chronic disease. And that's why when you think about how prevalent this is in our society, you realize, wow, we are really in bad shape. We have so many different people taking so much medication, confined to their homes because of illness and arthritis and Alzheimer's disease and all these things. And there really is no solution. Today, what I really wanted to talk about was there is a solution, and the solution is to avoid getting it in the first place.
My husband went to 3 different specialists, and we love every single one of them. They were wonderful. But never were we offered any kind of knowledge on maybe the possibility that some supplements, some antioxidants, some really great bioavailable nutrients could help Jack with his sarcoidosis. And then, like you said in the beginning of the show, we came to this on our own. To find those solutions through nutrition and nutraceuticals rather than pharmaceuticals on our own. And so I really look forward to the day where there are specialists and doctors who say, here's the other half that is missing here, that your body needs these nutrients and it's not getting them. So here's some solutions and some options for you. For Jack and I, it was because we did become a statistic that led us to be very passionate about now trying to help people from having to go through what we went through for 5 years fighting a autoimmune disease. And so epigenetics, what are they finding with epigenetics and the ability, the power that our body has to heal on a DNA level?
If you look at a map of our metabolism and all the different reactions that are going on, it literally is mind-boggling. So toxins interfere with normal biochemistry by kind of jumping into the places that healthy nutrients or healthy cofactors would be, and that's how chemical and metal toxicity affects our chemistry. When we look at these things, there was a study that was done by Dr. Skinner where he took a pregnant rat and exposed it one time to a high level of the stuff that we throw on our lawn, like fertilizer and like herbicide, like a weed killer. He expected that the pups of this pregnant rat would be affected, but he wanted to see exactly how they were going to be affected. What he didn't expect was that it was going to go 4 generations deep. So what he realized was one toxic exposure can affect the great-great-grandchildren of the people that are exposed. So that's epigenetics. When you have something that changes the way the genes work, and then it becomes something called a heritable trait, meaning that you can now give that altered function to your offspring, that's epigenetics. And it's a scary thought, because if you realize just how much we're exposed to on a regular basis and how that's affecting our kids and how it's actually going to affect their grandchildren, it's frightening. That's why I feel like the whole autism epidemic is just the tip of the iceberg, and how we are giving these altered chemical reactions to our kids, and then when they get together and have children, it's only going to be compounded. It's
Absolutely.
pretty scary.
Yeah. It's something, Dr. Mike, that maybe we just kind of even break it down just a little bit further, too, because, we talk about the Krebs cycle and we talk about the cells, and that's really what it boils down to, is these billions and billions of cells that are in our bodies. That toxic intake, it really becomes overbearing. In other words, we have too many toxins that our body can't really eliminate them like it should. And in today's society, with processed foods and herbicides and pesticides, we start talking about pharmaceutical medications and all of these different things, as well as, and this is on top of, what we're breathing in from the factories and the cars and all of the other things that are in our environment, as well as what we're getting off of our drinking water. If you're in the city, most likely you're taking in chlorines and taking in other chemicals that they're using to sanitize the water. Or if you're on a well, there's a good probability that you're taking in some toxic metals. For instance, in the area that I live, we have very high elevations of arsenic. And you drink arsenic every day, as well as everything else. You're going to have this really huge elevated toxic burden. If the body's not able to relieve them, they don't just disappear. They don't just go away. They get absorbed into the tissues of the body. So they get absorbed into joint tissue. They get absorbed into fat tissues. And when they're converted and absorbed, they're absorbed as a very acidic compound. So even if it was an alkaline derivative, it ends up becoming an acidic. And so now we get these elevations of acidity, and it starts to surround all of these billions of cells throughout our body. And that's when we have enough genetically deformed acidic cells, we end up, of course, now having, as you say, we end up with pathogenic and chronic illness and chronic disease, because what we typically rely on is healthy cells, not sick cells.
I, as a woman, want to point out is another huge toxic buildup, and for women specifically, because science has found that we're 4 times more toxic than men, and a lot of it is linked to the personal care products, the lotions, shampoo, toothpaste, deodorants, makeup, cosmetics that we put on our skin every single day, that again is marketed to us to keep us beautiful and from aging, and it actually causes lots of different diseases and aging. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's a shame, because in my mind, I would think that before something could be sold to you, that it would have to be approved by somebody that it wasn't toxic. But, the cosmetic industry is absolutely unregulated.
My motto's education beats medication, and nothing against Western medicine again, but we've been talking, and I think we all agree we're totally maxed out with toxicity and a lot of environmental issues that our body is bombarded with every day. So what can we do to empower our bodies to be healthy, be healed, and prevent all these chronic diseases?
If we think about stress, toxins, malnutrition, and physical laziness as culprits, the 4 culprits for creating chronic illness, we want to absolutely deal with each of these things. So we need to get out and move. Our bodies need to move. It's self-generating a compilation of tissue. So movement is critical, and exercise is vital, and cardiovascular exercise is really key to try to get oxygen to all your tissues, to make sure that you're eating appropriately, and organic is best. They're now saying 15 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. It's a pretty high quantity, but that's really what we're talking about at this point. And then obviously to supplement what you're not able to get, to avoid toxins, to think about what it is you're putting in your mouth. I mean, if you look at things like excitotoxin, diet products, sodas and artificial sweeteners are excitotoxins. They actually drive our brain cells and our nervous system to death. And looking at stress in our lives and how emotional stress or physical stress has just a tremendous cost physically, and actually will break down your tissues through altering your chemistry. So, I mean, that's the first place to start, is to think about those 4 big topics. And then to take specific actions, detox is the best. To start out any kind of program by trying to eliminate toxins in your system and get rid of all the stuff that's in your system while trying to reduce the overall inflammatory process that's going on in your system as well. Inflammation is really like at the root of most chronic illnesses. So, there's many different things to do, but I would say address those 4 things and detox probably twice a year for 5 or 6 or 7 days. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Doc?
And I think it's really important that people also understand that, exercise, one big thing here is that the lymphatic system, one of our, detox emunctories, one of the ways that we eliminate from the body. Lymphatic system is not like the heart. It doesn't have a pump. The only way that the lymphatic system moves is by movement. And so exercise is huge, to make sure that our bodies are detoxing properly. Water intake. A lot of people ask me, I have a lot of patients on a regular basis say, well, how much water should I drink? It's really, rule of thumb, real simple. Step on your scale, divide your weight in half, and that is how much water you should drink. So if you weigh 160 pounds, 80 is half of that. 80 ounces of water and that should be the minimum amount of water that you should be ingesting on a regular basis. Bottom line, get some tests done. I recommend to my patients get a nutritional panel done. Find out exactly what your nutritional deficiencies are, so you can take the nutrients that you need. Also, get a food allergy test done. Find out if there's anything in the environment that you're reactive to, because again, going back to what Dr. Mike just said, inflammation. Number one, reason for a lot of those pathogens. Remember that whenever you have acid, this acidic environment, you're going to have that inflammation because, acid's going to promote inflammation.
And I think, like you said before, this is something that we can really talk about for a long, long time. There's so many different aspects to this, but you have to take a first step. And I think the first step is always, deciding that you want to be healthier. Deciding that you want to take control of your health and not wait until something happens. It kind of makes me laugh to think that the first line of defense for breast cancer is self-exam. If a woman finds a lump, that means she's already got cancer. Hooking up with a practitioner that's going to be able to not only treat you and help you, but to educate you.
Simple little steps you can take. So be willing to do those little steps and not think that you have to be running marathons and eating organic raw food diet from the very first day.
I never ever want anybody to think, well, you're talking about prevention, but I already have something. People respond, and it's incredible. The more committed they are, the better they get.